Hello everybody, welcome to this interview by COREcruitment. Thank you very much for joining us today. For those of you who are not aware, COREcruitment's an international recruitment agency and we specialise in mid to senior level appointments across our sectors for exec and non-exec positions. Now we're running this interview series because we want to inject some positivity into the sector, and we're speaking to some phenomenal business leaders who we think are doing really interesting things across the sector. If you are a potential business leader who would like to get involved, or if you know somebody else you would like to recommend, then please do get in touch. And all of the content that we are shooting on video and articles that are being written are all available on our website, which is www.corerecruitment.com. So this is kind of 20-25 minutes where you can sit back, relax, or if you run around the park and you can listen to Ed Devenport telling us all about Incipio Group. How are you, Ed?
Yeah, very well, Krishnan. Thank you very much for having me. Look forward to this.
Excellent. Well, I mean, we're on brand with the brick walls. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, I'm pleased we met each other and coordinated our outfits.
Absolutely.
So that was a really great thing. So if we to get us kicked off, just to understand kind of like a little bit more about the business and kind of like, what you guys actually cover, can you give us a little bit of background for us?
Yeah, of course, no problem. So Incipio Group are sort of a 10-year-old business. We turn over circa 27 million in 2025, and that's across 7 venues that we have in London. We tend to operate rather large venues. Our average capacity is about 500 people, and it's been a great journey over the 10 years. And we started originally in meanwhile venues, doing seasonal activations with venues like Pergola on the Roof in White City, and we find ourselves today with 7 venues on long-term leases that range from a venue called the Libertine, which is city fair, and then in the basement of the Royal Exchange, which has been a great success for us, all the way through to party venues such as our Pergola branded venues and the Prince. And it's been a long journey, made a few mistakes along the way, but ultimately, we've learned from them, and we've got a group today which finds ourselves in a very exciting position with a number of openings this year at the Olympia redevelopment, where we're opening 5 venues in spring of 2026. So it's not going to be a quiet year. I think we're starting to rev the engine to make sure we really start with a bang.
And in preparation for having a chat with you today, obviously I looked at some research and social media and all of that kind of stuff. And I mean, the overwhelming thing, it looks like Incipio is where the party happens, right? I mean, your social media and all of your video stuff and all of that kind of stuff, it's really incredible.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something that we've always prided ourselves on. Right from the very beginning, when we were operating meanwhile venues through to where we are today, we like to see ourselves as being a very good operator of very big venues. And within that, the key for us is always in making sure these venues are destinational. They're a lot of fun, and they're also very bespoke and individual. We're not looking for one brand across the whole group. We operate a number of different venues under different identities and different brands, and we feel that works very well for us. Our venues range in style from different styles of service, different styles of cuisine, different booking sizes, different look and feel to them, and different atmospheres. And we're very keen when we look at any location, any destination, is what can we bring that is going to set us apart? What are our USPs as a group, and can we really put that into this venue? And more often than not, we get that right, and it's put the group today in a very exciting position, that with our capabilities and our breadth of skill set and experience and talent, that a lot of opportunities are opening up for us, which is the place that we want to be.
Excellent. Now, as part of doing this interview series, we've been talking to lots of private equity houses who seem hell-bent on opening 200 homogenous, similar pizza restaurants, in regional markets. And you guys are taking an extremely different approach. And you've also been massively, I think it was £9.6 million that you managed to fundraise last year, which also in the current economic climate is also massive achievement. Can you tell us about how the different approach you're taking is working and the benefit you're getting from it?
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, I think you are looking at a lot of brands who have a homogenous product that they're rolling out. Some people are doing that incredibly successfully, and we doff my hat to them. I think it's not an easy market, particularly in that casual dining space, and those that are making a success of it, I think, are incredibly impressive to have done so. I think from our facet and where we began, is just being operators of large venues and which are very destinational. I don't think a branded homogenous approach works to what we're doing. So we've always taken that approach of looking bespoke and curating, different brands with different, like I said, styles of cuisine, different offerings to really fit into what we're doing. Because as a group, where we want to go is we want to be looking at the very big opportunities in London, such as Olympia, and being seen by landlords and property developers as somebody that can come in and open multiple different offerings there, with Incipio very much a non-customer facing brand, but the brand's really speaking, making a lot of noise in the spaces and working in sort of tandem with the other ones, but all very different in what they're offering to the guests there. So in effect, a sort of one-stop solution for a lot of these developers. I think that's what we're bringing to Olympia, for example, where we have sort of a Japanese bar and restaurant all the way through to sort of a sort of food hall with multiple different food concepts in it, to a sort of sparkling wine terrace, to a very large Italian bar and restaurant.
Wow. Now, with Olympia, I mean, we can't have this meeting without kind of like speaking about it. I mean, a £1.3 billion development in West London. It's going to be absolutely game-changing for that whole kind of like area, and for you guys, I mean, it's going to more or less double the turnover of the business, right? So, Can you tell us a little bit about the project? And this has got to be quite a daunting thing, right? I mean, it's quite something to undertake, Ed, right?
Yeah, it is. No, it's a big play from us as a group, but it's exactly where we want to be. This is what we have been building this group up to be able to do, and it's we feel very honoured and privileged to have won the opportunity at Olympia to operate circa 50% of the F&B that's going to be on show there. It's a redevelopment that's been going on for a number of years. And is anticipated, once it gets up to fruition, to have around sort of 10 million visitors per year. It's spread over sort of 7 acres, and you've got some very good operators there in terms of, obviously, it's got the exhibition business, which has been there for a very, very long time. You've got AEG going in with a music venue. You've got Trafalgar Entertainment Group coming in with a theatre. You've got multiple hotels. You've got various office tenants going in, and lots more. And for us to sort of be operating 5 F&B venues there is a really exciting place for us to be. And it's individually, these venues are around the sort of size that we operate within London anyway. So it's not necessarily the size of the venues that is where the challenge lies. It's trying to open so many of them in such a short space of time. But we deliberately didn't open anything last year, and have really been sort of focusing on making sure that as a business we are really set up for the challenge and ready to deliver this year. And as we say as a team, it's been very easy to talk about the excitement around Olympia, but frankly, we've got to deliver. That's what we've got to do this year. So, people say, you're daunted by the challenge. I just think I'd so much rather be in the game than looking at it. So I'm really, really excited about where we're at, and I can't wait to see what this year brings. There'll be things we get wrong. There will be, we'll have a bit of luck, I'm sure. We'll be unlucky in other parts. But ultimately, I mean, if you look at the success the group's had and the incredibly talented teammates I have no doubt that this will be a huge success for the business. And as you say, if once it gets to where we want it to get to, the group will double in size, and with that comes a lot of opportunities and a lot of potential to go to sort of another level as a business.
Absolutely. It sounds like you're poised, Ed. You're poised and ready to go. That's it. And the whole thing sponsored by British Airways as well, which is also just absolutely incredible, right?
Yeah. So I mean that again is sort of part of the appeal of us. Is there's a lot of opportunities opening for us. We've had various discussions with British Airways about how we're sort of partnering with them, and that's in a really solid place. But it's these sort of best-in-class operators that you have coming to Olympia, which is purely, it really is going to be very destinational and built around leisure. There's no retail there, there's no residential there. It's going to be a very experience-led development. And I think it's going to be quite a cultural hub in sort of West London that, frankly, I think has been crying out for it for some time.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, all to play for.
All to play for. Now, when looking at your concepts, looking at kind of like, when you're creating a development of that kind of size and scale, and given the level of competition and saturation, especially within kind of central London, I mean, when you're getting your inspiration in terms of kind of like, what are you going to put in? What's this concept going to look like? I mean, where does that come from? Is it international, or do you benchmark kind of like against competitors in London? Who do you look to for inspiration?
We used to joke internally that so I think some people felt that when we got a new venue, we sort of put our ear to the concrete floor and had it whisper back to us what would work best here. But actually, what really happens, it's a very long process, and it really starts with just as a team, us really bouncing ideas back and forth and looking at various considerations from local demographic, what's the audience like, who we expect to be coming here, what do we think the price point should be, and particularly when you're opening multiple venues, is making sure that you have enough differentiation, not only in sort of cuisine and offering, but in style of service, price points, how the venue's laid out, multiple different elements, to music, to look and feel, they all come into the play here. And any hospitality business will have a lot of people within it who have a lot of ideas and a lot of thoughts, and it's about really managing that process so that everybody's heard, everyone's listened to, and it's all weighed up, and you end up making what we think are the sort of best decisions for the group. Because I like to think I'm good at what I do, but as sure as hell a lot better when listening to others within our team who tend to have the better ideas than I do. So in a long-winded way, we work very, very closely as a team, and we then take our inspiration from multiple different areas, from what we've seen. What are the trends in the market? What are the operators we're really impressed by? And they can come from all different realms. For example, with Arbor, which is the sort of food court we're running at Olympia, we spoke to about six to seven different operators around what we felt was the best ordering system to use within the scheme. And that's one sort of facet of it. But when you're then looking at the look and feel as well, it's taking inspiration from really good pubs to really good bars to really good restaurants to a bit of inspiration from what's happening in retail, domestically, internationally. You look at everything. Because there's a lot of really innovative, exciting businesses out there, and it's inspiring, to be very frank. And we want to make sure ultimately in the day that we're curating spaces going to appeal to a lot of people, and we really want to make sure it's got our stamp as Incipio on it. But at the same time, we've all got to be inspired by what we're seeing in this sector, and taking the best bits that we see and then putting our sort of style and stamp on it.
So you started off, your career, obviously, degree in economics, shipbroking. I mean, not something that you kind of leave every day with people who work in hospitality, but what got you into the sector? And do you think that gives you a bit of unique perspective? I
think I was very fortunate, sort of the first 10 years of my career after university, to work for the sort of largest shipbroker in the world, sort of buying and selling the big sort of commercial ships. And working in that sort of corporate environment, I think particularly as a young person, taught me a huge amount about sort of work ethic, discipline, and how to work within a team, how to work with individuals, with various different stakeholders, with various principles. And I certainly learned a huge amount there. I think those things have always sort of underpinned how I go about sort of working and building a team at Incipio. But obviously it doesn't tell you a hell of a lot about hospitality. But it's something that hospitality is always something I've really, really enjoyed back from when I was doing sort of various contract catering gigs when I was sort of 16, to working at GBK when I was 18, and various jobs in bars and pubs when I was younger. But I've always been absolutely fascinated by it and loved it. And the opportunity came about to get into hospitality when I was on gardening leave between two jobs in the sort of shipping world. I bumped into an old friend called Charlie Gardner, who was running a bar with sort of four small food traders down in Shepherd's Bush, and started helping him out. And I think after about 1 week, I was spending less and less time on my sort of shipping career and more time invested in interest in what was going on there. And subsequently decided to park the sort of shipping career and go dive right into the deep end into working with him to develop Incipio Group. And I absolutely love it. I think the things that stand out for me about hospitality is it's just, I love this people-focused environment, whether it be the team you work with or the guests you serve. I really thrive in that environment, more so than I did in my previous career. And if you ask me the one thing I love the most about where I find myself today, it's the people I work with. at hand every day of the week, and doing something that's tangible and where you're giving people a good time is just a great place to be in. It's in a great industry to be in, and it's not an easy industry, and I don't think it gets many favors from government, and it's fine margins, but there are a lot of wonderful things about this sector, and I don't think we shout about it enough sometimes, about the happiness and the joy you can get out of working with the people that you do within hospitality, and everything that the sector can bring.
Completely agree with you. So, like, as part of that journey, you mentioned Charlie Gardner, obviously, kind of like your business partner, but like, is there anyone else kind of like sector-wise who you've lent on or been given advice by, or that you've kind of like been inspired by?
Oh, a huge amount. I mean, there are people who've been in the industry 40, 50 plus years, and, I'm still at around sort of 10 years. So I've got a huge amount to learn. There's nothing better than just speaking to your peers, and learn lessons every day, but also taking inspiration from what they've done. I'm particularly inspired by what Anthony Pender has achieved, what James Nye's achieved. I think what Charlie Jokes and Duncan Sterling have done at Incipio Group is remarkable, and I think within the pub sector as well, the likes of the guys at Urban Pubs and Bars very well. I'm particularly impressed with how they've built that business and how they've grown it. And you take different things from different people, but it's there's a lot of people to be inspired by, and I'm also fortunate to have put together a board that's full of incredibly talented people, including our chairman Ian Edward, to the likes of sort of David Roberts, to Leanne Catterall. My father's on the board as well, and to a number of others who give great advice and great insight about how to, not only inspire your decisions about how the venues we want to be opening and where we want to be taking the group, but also learning the lessons about how you build a very strong business that can weather the storms within our sector, and underpin the success that we want to achieve. Because there's a lot of stuff that people see when they walk into a venue, how it looks, the look and feel, the offering, and that's critically important. I mean, you're nothing without that. But there is so much back of house work that needs to be done, and you really do need to invest in your teams and the environment you're creating as a company to make sure that you get the best out of people, because we've got so many talented people in Incipio, and I think key part of my role is making sure that they really love what they do, because if they really love what they do, they're going to be superb, because they're exceptionally talented and they can do things that I can only dream of. So I think fostering that environment allows you to take a lot of inspiration from your teammates, and then speaking to a lot of people outside of it, within the sector and outside of the sector, and constantly looking at what they're doing, and you get your inspiration from there as well. So it's a very long-winded answer, but I think it's all around us in terms of where you can take that inspiration from.
I love that. Just a quick question on your, does your dad have hospitality background or experience?
No, not at all. Not at all. He used to work sort of in the banking world. So his knack for due diligence and process are helpful, if a tad frustrating at times.
My God, I love a family dynamic in a business. And I love family dynamic in it. All comes out at the dinner table, right? It's kind of one of them. Now, we alluded to it earlier, and obviously today's meant to be about kind of like positivity and kind of like sharing kind of like upbeat message. But not every day is a sunny day. There are lots of businesses out there at the moment who maybe aren't doing as well as they could be doing, and the word failure is something which kind of like I think a lot of people are having a hard time with kind of like at the moment as well. But could you give us an example? Because I'm not sure, I'm sure that not everything you've touched is always turned to gold. Can you give us an example of kind of maybe something that hasn't gone so well for you, what you did to set it right, and what you kind of learned from the experience?
Yeah, I think if I look back at the 10 years, I think where the mistakes have been made, my side, is ultimately not being having a robust enough long-term strategy, and sometimes making short-term decisions that don't lean into that, and they've rarely gone well. Because they sort of end up falling out of whack with the rest of the group and what you're trying to achieve. And to give an example of that, this was a great idea on paper, but not necessarily one that we should have done. But we had a number of venues in West London that were, daytime. All of our venues are daytime venues now, and they were at around sort of 10:30, 11 o'clock. We had about 2,500 people leaving our various venues, and we thought logically, if we were to have a nightclub, was sort of right bang in the middle of all of them, then that would be a great place to sort of cross market, cross push, and have that audience go there. And in theory, it worked well. I mean, we weren't helped by the fact that we opened this nightclub 2 months before COVID, and as we all know, nightclubs struggled afterwards. But I think the bigger issue was, whilst in theory that could have worked really, really well, we were taking the group into a slightly different segment of the market that we ultimately didn't know as well as we did the other areas we were very strong in. And I think that fundamentally was down to not having enough clarity on what our long-term strategy was, and why this route necessarily didn't lend itself to our sort of long-term planning. So I think if I was to go back to the very beginning, I would spend a lot more time in fine-tuning that long-term strategy and being a lot more firmer about making sure that we adhere to it, and saying no to opportunities that maybe short-term or on paper look very, very smart, but if they don't fit in with what you're looking to achieve long-term, then they're probably best left alone.
Understood. Now, obviously, like, technology is playing a massive part kind of like in the world, and like, there's AI, AGI, like all of this kind of stuff, which is kind of coming online. Consumer kind of like, behaviors changing, like, it's a constant kind of like market which is in flux at the moment. What are you expecting from the next 12 to 24 months in terms of innovation?
Yeah, it's a good question there. And it's hospitality is sort of fragmented in a way. You speak to any operator, everyone has sort of rather different tech stacks and rather convoluted tech stacks. And I think, particularly in hospitality, I think we sit on a lot of data. I mean, I think every operator generally sits on a lot of information about their customers, but it's not necessarily, people don't really know what they have. And I think we've been slightly guilty of that in the past. We had a lot of data, but we didn't really know what sort of data we had. And I think trying to sort of segment that and really make sure that you can sort of delve into the different profiles, the different audiences you have coming to your venue, and then being a lot smarter around how you market to individuals, rather than sort of a blanket approach that is generally quite sort of synonymous with our sector, will lend itself hugely to how sort of marketing will happen in the future. And I think the likes of sort of AI and technology will be critical in that component there, in being able to sort of clean and sort that data and help to provide a very sort of clear view of what you're sitting on effectively. And then only once you know what you have, can you then utilize it. So from our perspective, I think particularly over the last year, we've been doing a huge amount of work on the data that we have, and how we're going to go about collecting it in the future, and what is the purpose of collecting that data. Because I think in the past we've been guilty of just going, let's collect it, and then we have it, but we don't really know what we have. Much better to have less, but to know exactly what you're sitting on, to understand your customer better. So we're doing a lot of work now, particularly on the sort of marketing side, that will sort of lends itself to what we're doing around sort of SEO and our websites, to really sort of smarten our approach to how we go around marketing, particularly from a sort of digital perspective. And I think conversely, once that element is done within the group, you will start to see a huge amount of developments, I think, around the sort of back of house functions, around how we work around sort of labor and stock management, and getting that into a very sort of acute place. And, leaning again, where appropriate, on the likes of sort of AI and sort of automation in a sense to help inform your decision making on that front there. And none of that's going to be more sort of prevalent for us than Olympia, for example, because we're going to have 5 venues there, and if you have an exhibition on, that is going to and that exhibition is happening in 2 weeks, and that the demographic going to that exhibition or of a certain whatever of that segment, you can then be a lot cuter about what you need to be doing around what your rotoring should look like for that week, what stock you should be ordering in, because they may consume very differently to what the audience would consume the following week that would be coming for a different exhibition. So it's about trying to sort of make sure that utilizing all the information that we have at hand, simplifying it, and then using that to inform very clear decision making, to help make you more efficient as a business. So I definitely don't have all the answers about where the tech is going to take our sector, but you can see that the sands are shifting, and that there is going to be a lot of help a lot of help that can be utilized to sort of inform our decision making. And I think the trick for all hospitality businesses over the next year is to sort of find a way to differentiate between those that are really going to benefit what you're looking to do from a sort of front of house and back of house perspective without in any way impacting your guest experience.
Absolutely. I thought it was a brilliant answer. Now, I saw you 3 years ago, had a drink together in Dubai, if you remember, kind of like when you were out there, kind of like, looking at all of that. And there were literally companies flocking around you, kind of saying like, oh, we want to franchise and blah, 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 all of that kind of side of things. I mean, I've always thought that your concepts would do extremely well in international markets. So kind of, if you can think post-Olympia, like what's the plan for the future?
I think, it was good times that in Dubai, wasn't it? It was good fun. I think as a group, we're fiercely ambitious, and I think Olympia is going to be a key chapter for Incipio, but it's going to be one of many chapters we're going to have. And I think in terms of our growth, we would love to go internationally. Now, we are at the very start of that journey. We have made 1 or 2 trips to start exploring different markets and getting an understanding about where we think would be a success, how we would go about doing it, what we think it would cost, which one of our brands we think we should take with us, or is it a couple of them? And it's something that you need to spend a lot of time, because you can really take the group down a very dangerous path if your efforts and focuses are split between 2 different continents, so to speak. So we are really very much at the very beginning. We've spoken to a lot of different people, a lot of different operators, a lot of different agents, a lot of different builders, project managers, to try and get a real feel for various parts of the world, what it's like operating there. Because if you open internationally, that first venue has got to be a success.
100%.
Really, really does. And you don't get many shots at it because it's not cheap to do. So the international markets are certainly on our agenda. As you say, we'll get Olympia up and firing first before we start putting spades in the ground in different continents. But it's on our radar, and it's something I know that when I can also speak for my teammates, we're very keen to pursue at one point. Life's short, and it'll be a lot of fun to do. And exciting, very, very exciting. We've got to get that first decision right, and to do that, I think we really need to educate ourselves to the absolute max about how we go about doing it.
Absolutely. Well, listen, congratulations once again on the investment. Can't wait to see Olympia. When's it scheduled to?
So it's due to open spring this year, so only a couple of months away, and then we're there.
Excellent. Well, look, I definitely won't be calling you any March, April, or May.
I'll see you down there
to Olympia to have a look around, Ed. That's fantastic. Thanks so much for taking the time.
No worries. Thank you very much, Krishnan. Appreciate it.